You don't remember the exact moment the world began to die. Looking back, you tell yourself there must have been a sign, something obvious, something you should have noticed, a crack in the foundation, a silence where there should have been laughter, a ship that didn't return. But life in Ugarit felt too solid, too safe, too permanent to imagine anything could ever threaten it. Your mornings always began the same way, the first light of dawn spilling across the rooftops, the distant clatter of merchants preparing the marketplace, the soft hum of waves kissing the harbor walls. You would breathe it all in, the comforting rhythm of a city that had stood for generations, a city that, in your mind, would stand forever. But forever is shorter than you think. If you walked through Ugarit at sunrise, it felt like the heart of the world. Bronze tools glinted in the morning sun. Spices from lands you'd never seen filled the air with fragrances so rich they almost felt unreal. Sailors shouted to one another across the harbor, loading cargo destined for Egypt, Cyprus, or the Hittite lands far to the north. And you, just one small life inside this great machine, felt lucky. Lucky to live in a city where every door seemed open, where knowledge flowed as freely as wine, where trade routes connected you to civilizations so distant they might as well have been stars. War felt like a story elders told around fires. Famine felt like a myth. Collapse felt impossible. Your world was too large, too stable, too bright. But stability is a delicate illusion, and yours was about to shatter. The first warning arrived not with fire or screams, but with silence. A caravan from the east, one you'd seen countless times before, came limping into the city, late, ragged, half its animals gone. The men looked hollow, as if their eyes had forgotten how to hope. They spoke of droughts so merciless that entire fields turned to dust before harvest, of villages emptied overnight, of storms that tore across farmlands like blades. You told yourself it was just a bad season. Every land has its hardships. But more caravans came, each with fewer goods and darker stories. Merchants no longer smiled when they passed. Priests whispered to each other instead of chanting openly. The king's messengers galloped faster than usual and always at night. Something was shifting. It was subtle at first, like the faint smell of smoke before anyone sees the fire. But the fire was coming. One afternoon, as the heat pressed down on the city like a heavy blanket, you watched a messenger stumble into the palace courtyard. His clothes were torn by travel, his feet blistered, his horse foaming at the mouth. He carried only a single clay tablet. The king read it, and the color drained from his face. He didn't announce the news to the people. There was no speech, no decree. But whispers spread faster than wind. A great kingdom far to the west had fallen, burned, destroyed. A few days later, another messenger arrived, and another. Each tablet carried worse news than the last. Cities were burning, palaces abandoned, trade routes choked with refugees. No one knew who or what was sweeping across the world, but every whisper carried the same phrase: "They come from the sea." The first time you saw the harbor empty, it didn't feel real. For as long as you could remember, dozens of ships had always been anchored there. Merchant vessels, fishing boats, foreign traders. Their sails had always formed a forest of masts swaying in the salty breeze. But now the harbor looked like a graveyard. Just a few lonely ships remained, their captains planning escape rather than trade. Most had sailed away days earlier, hoping to outrun the catastrophe that seemed to be creeping ever closer. You walked along the shoreline, listening to the creaking wood, the slapping of water against hulls. The world felt unfamiliar, too quiet, too hollow. Then you saw something that chilled you more deeply than the empty harbor. A child's wooden toy, a small carved ship floating aimlessly near the docks. Left behind, abandoned, forgotten. You couldn't explain why, but that was when you first understood. Your world was dying. The attack didn't come with the sunrise. It came in the dead of night. You were awakened by a distant thudding, rhythmic, unnatural, growing louder with every heartbeat. You pushed open your window and saw something moving on the horizon, dark shapes blotting out the moonlight, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Ships, not Ugaritian, not Hittite, not Egyptian. Their sails were black, their prows carved with symbols you had never seen. They moved like beasts across the water, silent, coordinated, relentless. Then came the horns, low, haunting, a sound that made your bones ache. Panic erupted through the streets as people rushed outside, staring at the approaching armada. Mothers clutched their children, men grabbed tools, anything that could serve as a weapon. Dogs barked wildly, sensing a terror beyond human comprehension. You heard your neighbor whisper the words no one wanted to believe. The sea peoples are here. When the ships hit the shore, the world exploded. Flames tore across the marketplace. Buildings crumbled. Screams filled the air like a chorus of despair. The smell of burning wood and flesh choked your lungs as you ran through smoke-thick streets searching for a place, any place, to hide. You stumbled, coughed, cried, prayed, but the only prayer that came was a desperate plea. Let me survive this night. By morning, nothing resembled the city you once loved. The sun rose over a landscape of ruins, charred beams, collapsed walls, scorched earth. The harbor was a graveyard of shattered ships. Ash drifted through the air like black snow. You wandered through the desolation, stepping over rubble, avoiding smoldering embers. You barely recognized familiar streets. Your home was gone. The palace was in ruins. The marketplace was nothing but twisted metal and broken pottery. And the worst part, the silence. No merchants shouting, no laughter, no gossip, no music. Just the hollow, endless quiet of a world that had forgotten how to live. Ugarit, the shining jewel of the sea, was dead. And you, one of the lucky ones, could only stand among the ashes and wonder how something so mighty could fall so completely, so quickly. The years that followed were a wandering blur. You drifted from village to village, moving through lands that had lost their kings, their scribes, their identity. Many places you passed through were burned-out shells, others were ghost towns, still standing but deserted, waiting for history to reclaim them. People no longer spoke of when the world ends. That phrase had lost its meaning. The world had ended. What came after was not a new beginning, but a long, uneasy silence. A collapse so deep that writing itself faded. Knowledge unraveled. Entire cultures dissolved into memory. You lived quietly, consuming little, hoping for nothing, simply enduring. But even in those hollow years, humanity's spark refused to die. One morning, years after the collapse, you climbed a hillside to gather firewood. The sun broke through the clouds with a warmth you hadn't felt in a long time. Below you, children from a small settlement were laughing, chasing one another, their voices rising like bird song across the valley. In their play, you heard something you thought the world had lost. Hope. Maybe the cities would not rise again in your lifetime. Maybe the palaces would remain ruins. Maybe the stories of your youth would one day sound like myths. But children don't care about the ashes of old empires. They care about what they can build. Humanity had survived the collapse, and with time, it would rise again. When you look back on your life, you realize you witnessed the end of an age of bronze, of trade, of writing, of kingdoms that once felt eternal. But nothing is eternal. Civilizations rise because people believe in them. They fall when people forget how fragile they truly are. You survived because you learned the one truth the ancient world never understood. The greatest danger comes not from enemies, but from believing that collapse is impossible. And as you watch the children laughing below, building their tiny huts with the determination of a new generation, you know that even from ruins, a future can grow. The Bronze Age collapsed, but humanity didn't, and neither did you.